Everyone, I'm Alfian and today we are going to solve the LeetCode challenge on the challenge number 177 called the NTH highest salary. What it means by NTH is the certain position or certain number from the highest salary, let's say from the second, from the third, or even from the first. And for this particular challenge, we have this structure of employee table, which is the first one is ID. A moment. ID is the primary key column with unique values for this table. Each row of this table contains information about the salary of an employee from the respective employee. So we have two columns, the first one which is the ID and the second one which is the salary column from the employee table. And we need to write a solution to find the NTH or the certain highest distinct salary from the employee table. Do need to remember that we have to use a distinct keyword and salary from the employee table. If there are less than n distinct salaries, return null, and the result format is in the following example. For the example 1, we have 3 entries of salary of each employee from ID1, ID2, ID3, and it is not explicitly described that there is an employee with a certain salary. It's just the ID and the salary, and we have this certain position and is equals to 2, so it is, on the other words, it is on the second position from the second highest salary. So as we can see from our naked eye that we have the 300 as the highest, 200 is the second highest salary, so we need to return the 200 as the second highest salary. And from this argument right here, which is 2, is the get second highest salary. So 2 here is the function expression from this create function from the SQL query. Oh, I forgot to remind you that in order to solve this, I'm going to use MySQL language. If you want to use something else other than MySQL, then go ahead, I encourage you to do so. And for the next example, we have the example 2 right here, which is only one entry from the employee table. And since it is also requires the second highest salary, since it is only one entry of the salary table, then we should return null instead of empty entry. Okay, so you might be scared at first if you really a beginner following this tutorial, because there is a function which is create function right here that name with the get NTH highest salary or get certain highest salary from that position, and we have the, I believe is an argument, which is the n right here, given the argument of n, one parameter, which in a form of integer, and the expected output is returning as integer, returns integer. And we need to begin our function expression or starting our code block, and we need to write our MySQL query statement below this hashtag green color text, and this is the end of the expression. And without further ado, let's solve this out. The first thing that we need to do, if you still remember about our previous video solving this second highest salary on the, I believe it's on the challenge 176, also on the medium difficulty, you might want to hover over my videos about the LeetCode medium challenge. And we basically rewriting our SQL query, but in this case we are writing this inside our return statement right here. As you can see, it is wrapped in parentheses, and we need to write our MySQL query statement inside of this return statement. So we can select everything, select keyword, select everything from the table which is employee. It is fairly same, but since it is required that we need to write this thing, so we need to return the salary list, but only the distinct. So what it means by this thing, let me remind you once again that let's say if we have the entry of 100 and the next one 200, next one 200, and the next one is 300. So the distinct select from the using the distinct keyword is going to be returned 100, 200, and 300. Is basically returning only the unique values between that column. So from this thing right here, we need to select this thing since we are using a wildcard or asterisk, so we are selecting everything from the ID and the salary. But before that, before we implement this thing, let's run this to see if it works. And we have runtime error. Operand should contain one column, so we are expected to return only one column instead two columns of the ID and salary. We can use a select salary in the salary using the lowercase because this column name is supposed to match our select query. And let's run this again. If it's displaying something, shape query returns more than one row. What it means that we need to return only one entry from our return statement from this function of the get nth highest salary. So we need to limit only to one. And let's run this again. And we have the error. Manual correspond to the server question and line 7, and we need to use order by the salary. What it means by order by salary, we are ordering the salary based on the by default is ascending order, so we are starting from the lowest to the highest. But if we use the descending order using the descending keyword, we are sorting our salary column from the highest to the lowest. Here using our descending keyword. And let's run this again to see if the limit one is working. And let's run this again without the semicolon. And we have the runtime of 286. And for this get nth highest salary is 2, but we are only returning the highest one, which is 300 as expected. But we need to return the certain number from the highest salaries, which is 2 right here, which is the second highest. And for this case 2 right here, we are returning 100, since 100 is the highest one, but we need to return the second highest since it is not possible, and we need to return null instead. We can use offset keyword and pass in our n, just like we are working with usual language like JavaScript or TypeScript or even Java. We can pass in our parameter as our offset value right here as the expression. And let's run this again. And for the case 2, we are already returning null, and for the case 1, we are returning 100 instead of 200. Why it happens is because, let's say we have the sorted. Let me highlight the first example. We have the employee table, and after we change this using the select salary, the salary column will be 300 using this from employee order by descending order, and then 200, and finally 100. And then we use the limit 1. We only limit only one entry to be displayed to our screen right here, and we already limited by 1, but this displaying 100 instead of 200. We are displaying the third entry from the total entry of the salary column. And limit 1, we already offset this by the n value. We already passed in the n value from this argument or the parameter, and n is equals to 2. Since n equals to 2, we are basically offsetting from the highest one. If we happen to not use offset at all, let's say if we use offset 0, then we are not offsetting anything. So we are highlighting 300, and 300 is on the position 0, or off. In other words, offset 0. If we offset by 1, what we got is 200. If we offset by 2, what we got is 100. Since n is 2 is equals to 2, then we are returning 100 instead of 200. How do we get around this? We can use the n negative 1. Why n negative 1? Because we need to adjust or realign the default offset by the past parameter by the direct parameter passed from the function into our offset. If we use just like that, then we are returning offset by 2 steps, which is on 100, but we only need to return 1 step. We can use n -1. So if we have the n equals to 2 and -1 subtracted by 1, and we got the offset by 1, and offset by 1 is selecting the 200 right here because of the limit 1 right here. And let's see if we can use the n by 1 right here and subtracted by 1 expression. Can we use this? And let's run this again. And we have an error in our SQL syntax. Let's see. We should use the distinct keyword from the select distinct salary, and let's run this again. We still have an error, which is n subtracted by 1. This expression is not possible. How about we wrap this as expression? We still have the incorrect expression. We cannot just pass in that expression from the parameter and then subtract it by 1 and then wrap this in a parenthesis. We need to declare this from the top. We need to operate this pass parameter, and before that we have to mutate our value as our new variable, and then we pass in that variable that we already created before as our offset value instead of just using this expression. How do we do this? We need to get creative. Since it is already write our MySQL query statement below, then we are writing inside this return statement. We need to get a little bit creative and become a bit rebellious only for the sake of this challenge. The thing is that we can declare the variable that muted this and value and subtract this by 1 and then pass that variable into our offset expression. We can do that, and this LeetCode is not going to get angry at us. We can declare our value as after we use begin right here, begin statement, and between the begin and return statement we can pass in our variable declaration using the declare keyword, declare, and we can declare a position because we need to normalize our n parameter as our offset. We can declare position as integer, and the next one we should do, don't forget the semicolon because we are executing this line by line because we are working with the SQL. It is the same thing as, let's say, if we are inside a function of the JavaScript, we can declare this as the constant position, and then equals to the integer or 0, and then the next one we need to declare our position is equals to the n with the pass parameter of the n right here, and then subtracted by 1. This is the JavaScript or TypeScript variable declaration, but it is similar on the SQL or the MySQL. We can use the declare keyword position, which type as the type of integer, and the next line we can declare another set keyword using the set position is equals to the n -1. So that is the main declaration, and we can pass in our, after we reset this position is n from the parameter and then subtracted by 1, and we already normalize this as we should do. After this position we can use the position variable into our offset expression. So instead of using the parentheses and subtracted by 1, it is not possible, and we can just pass in our position as variable. And let's run this again to see if it really works. And we have the runtime of 79 milliseconds, and we got the correct answer, and we don't have to worry about declaring this outside of the return statement, because that is the one of many ways to pass in our challenge. Okay, so that's about it. I hope you understand my explanation. If you still don't understand, you can ask me in the comment section, or if you have any better solutions regarding this challenge, tell us what's in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.